Welcome back to the Be a Man podcast. I thank you for joining me today. I'm looking forward to this episode. Just wanted to touch base with several of you. If you have not done so already, please go and check out in the bio. There are several links. Check out the content that we're putting out here. I'm excited about it. There's been a lot of interaction lately, a lot of feedback, which I thoroughly enjoy. I think that is part of what makes this so enjoyable is that we get to interact and bounce ideas off each other and just see what other men are thinking about, and it makes it fun. I enjoy that part of this, and if you have comments or you've ever wondered about writing me or any of those things, please feel free to do that. I would love to interact and chat with you. I will tell you guys, I have a lot of great interviews coming up. I think you're really going to enjoy them. I've had some that I've been really thrilled about already come out this week or this year. I hope you enjoyed the one with JC Groves. I had a lot of fun doing that. I didn't realize we had so many things in common, but it's great to hear another guy's story that I'm sure is very similar to several of yours who are listening to this. And it was just encouraging to hear someone else talk about those things. And this last week's just getting into some theology topics and talking about the Bible and the Word and going into some of that meat of the Word. It was just a lot of fun, and some of the challenges we face and just the need to be in the Word. I think that's all really good stuff. Tomorrow, you're going to hear from David, or not tomorrow, Thursday. You'll hear this one as I'm recording tomorrow. Thursday, you're going to hear from David, who runs the Spiritually Dangerous site, and I think you're going to really enjoy that conversation that we had. There were a few technical issues. If you're watching, you might notice them, but if you're listening, you shouldn't have any problems at all. I'm not sure what happened, and my recording platform, they don't know, and they can't figure out what happened either. So either way, the audio is fine, and most of the video is fine, so I think you're really going to enjoy that. There's several others coming up that I think you're going to really like. Just talking about manhood, masculinity, this whole idea of toxic masculinity. What do we do with that? I talked to one of the guys from the Order of Man Network. That's coming up here soon, Kip. There's several that I think you're just really, really going to enjoy. And then closer into February and in March, we're going to hit on several weeks of just kind of finances, looking at money. I know that's a topic that I'm starting to hear a lot of people concerned about. And I recorded several of these at the end of last year, anticipating even more of those concerns. And those thoughts have been coming true. And I think you're really going to like it. One is Chris from Rising Father. He has explored and has been really an invaluable resource for finding extra avenues to supplement your income and just finding different ways to bring in extra money. And I think you're going to be encouraged by that. I talked to Tim and Christian and some others about finances as well. And I just think you're really going to be encouraged. Some of it's super basic, which, a lot of times, especially when we're trying to get things in order and all that, that's what we need to hear. How to budget, how to, put things in order, how to prioritize what we should prioritize and let go of what we shouldn't. And I think, I know for myself, it has been super encouraging to me. Several of these guys, they are genuine, down to earth, just want to help you in taking control of your finances, your money, and best preparing for the future. And I think you're really going to enjoy those. And I know I have, so I'm looking forward to that. I have several others I'm recording here soon that I think you're going to be excited to hear when they come out later this year. That's my goal, is to record as many as possible. It's hard when spring hits, Easter, several activities that take my time away. I run our town's Little League program, which is, I would like to say it's only at the Diamond, but that's not the truth. And any of you who've been involved in those sorts of things, that that's not how it works. And so that takes a lot of my evenings away. So I'm trying to get as many recorded now as possible so I can have those ready for you as you go to listen to them this summer and fall. My goal each week is me on Tuesdays and then an interview on Thursdays, and hopefully you will be encouraged by that. And I'm still working on some other things. They're just not quite to the level that I would like them to be for my own kind of perfectionist kind of heart. You know what I mean? I think you know what I mean as I say that. And I like some of the fine tuning to be done before I put those out. So I'm working on that. Should be done hopefully here in a few weeks. And, it may take a little longer. My wife and I are headed to a conference. Some of you may know about Founders Ministries. They are located in Florida. They're having a national conference that we are excited to go to. I've never been, but I have followed them. They're part of the reason why I'm where I'm at now, pastoring a small church, and I have been encouraged by them, and I enjoy their ministry, and I'm my wife and I are really looking forward to that. Just a time of recharging, regrouping, and getting ready for the spring and really for the rest of the year. This is kind of when we get our ducks in a row, our plans together, and the kids, have a lot of fun at grandparents' house. So I think they're going to really enjoy that as well. But, as you start listening to these things, as you start reading the content, don't forget to go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, to the podcast platform, and most of all, go share it with a friend. That's the best way that we can get the word out. It's the best way that we can encourage other men to be better men, and I appreciate it. And I don't just say that. I genuinely do appreciate it, and it helps drive me to keep going, because there's some days where I'm like, is this really making a difference? Is this really doing anything? And then I'll get a random message from somebody, and it's super encouraging to me, and I appreciate you. You know who you are, and I want you to know I do appreciate those, and I do appreciate you, and I want to encourage you, man. Keep going, keep fighting, keep being bold, keep being the husband, the father, the son, the person that God has called you to be. Keep going. One other thing before I forget, because I almost did, I was asked to come on the Young Minds podcast with Charlie Banks. He is a great young man, high schooler who I work with teens a lot, so I'm always excited to have those conversations. But I think you'd really enjoy that. I reveal some things that I want to get into here in the coming weeks that I see with young people, but I also see with others right now that is pervasive in our society. And I think you'd really enjoy that. If you have young people, please go and share that. I love what Charlie's doing. It was a great episode, and please feel free to share that with other young people, as I think they'll be encouraged as well. We hit several things that I think young people should be thinking about, that they should be striving about, how not to veer away from the faith as we see so many do so often, how this whole idea of deconstruction is just, I have a lot of problems with it. And how they define it right now. So please go ahead, go check that out. I think you'd really enjoy that. But today, whenever you're listening, I want to encourage you with just a passage that I read recently. It's going to be a shorter episode, but I wanted to talk about something that I found encouraging, but also thought-provoking these last several days. And it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Paul is the author. He was writing the Corinthian church. They were a mess. I mean, you've read 1 Corinthians. You know that early 1 Corinthian church was just, in many ways, a disaster, but also probably not that far off from the American church today. They had their issues. They had their problems. But there was one time in chapter 10, and Paul says this, and I really want to highlight this passage. He says, I, Paul, myself, entreat you, by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, I who am humble when face to face with you, but bold toward you when I am away. I beg of you, that when I am present, I may not have to show you boldness with such confidence as I count on showing against some who suspect us of walking according to the flesh. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. Now, Paul was writing them. Yes, in his letters, he was often very bold. He often gave compliments as well. He was we read in other historical documents as well, he was known as kind of a humble person. But we find here that often Paul could not go see them face to face because he was in prison for teaching and preaching the gospel. So he wasn't always able to be with them. So that's often why he was often bold in his letters to them, because that was the only way they were going to hear it. So Paul is writing them. He's telling them about the flesh, the strongholds. Excuse me. I'm going to tickle in my throat tonight. So I'm trying to drink that off. So with some hot tea. But he says, our weapons, they're not of the flesh. They're of divine power to destroy strongholds. And oftentimes, I think we forget that often our battles are not flesh and blood, are not mere mortals, mere men, but we are raging in a spiritual warfare. Often our battles are in our minds. Often they take place long in our minds before they ever reach out in public, or they reach out in our actions, or show themselves in our actions. But he says that verse, chapter 10, verse 5, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. Every thought captive. And that thought has been on my mind a lot lately. And I wonder how often we really put into practice that verse. How often we are really practicing taking every thought captive before we speak our minds, or before we share our truths, air quotes, right? My truth, your truth, this postmodern thought that we have there. But how often do we think, what would Christ think about this? What would Christ think about what I'm going to say? And what would Christ think about what I'm thinking right now? Would it obey him? Would it glorify him? Would it bring him happiness? Would it bring him honor? Would it bring those around me? Would it point them to Christ? And not that every time we have a conversation does it need to be the gospel coming out of our mouths. I don't think that's what he's getting at, but I do think we should view every encounter, every opportunity as a potential opportunity to share Christ, a potential opportunity to build a relationship. Now, sometimes it's just not quite there. There's sometimes you're not going to get along with everybody. There's been people in my life that they, and probably your life, that they just don't like you. And there's no reason why. There's nothing that you've done or said that you know of. They just don't like you. And it's kind of an odd thing, but I can't say anything else but the sin that is in the world, and that has, blinded people's hearts, and they have a hard time looking past something. Maybe you remind them of somebody in their past, or whatever it is. Oftentimes there's just something there that you can't hardly get past those bridges. But when those opportunities are there, are we taking our thoughts captive to obey Christ? Being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete. I just wondered, I want to challenge this week. I want to challenge you this week. Are you taking your thoughts to Christ? Are you taking them captive to Christ? Are you allowing the scriptures, the words to guide you in your life? Or are you just hoping that God will speak down from heaven or something like he did in the Old Testament. And I don't think that would be a good practice. We don't see Paul really advising that either, or any of the New Testament authors for that matter. But what we do see is men and women of the scriptures reading the word, obeying the word, and striving to live their lives according to the word. And as you do that, I believe we grow more and more faithful to him. Now, we're all on different spots in our spiritual journeys, but as we are walking, let us not walk according to the flesh, but according to the Spirit, and take all our thoughts captive to him. So that's my challenge this week. Take your thoughts captive to Christ. Trust him. He is faithful. He is good. He loves you, and he desires you to be pursuing holiness in this life. Now, please, if you know somebody that's struggling with this, please go share this with them. And I hope that it has been encouraging to you as well. Until Thursday, as you hear from David, we're going to hit some of these things as well, this desire for the word in our lives. But I just want you to be challenged. Go. Encourage someone this week. Encourage them to stay true to the faith that they have proclaimed and believed. Encourage them as a man of God to continue to walk the line, to pursue Christ with you, and be willing to sacrifice. Be willing to hold them accountable. Be willing to let them hold you accountable and pursue him. And hopefully, in the end, we can encourage men to be better men. So with that, have a great week.